Good morning, everyone. I just want to talk a little bit today about peanuts, nuts, all of the inappropriate types of fats that get included with nuts. I always suggest for a snack for folks that they try to take a fat source and use a fat source to build a gap between meals. So if you're having breakfast, and you're going to try to put a meal in between breakfast and lunch, I always suggest using something with good quality fat, because that fat will help to sustain your blood sugar and help to give you kind of sustainable energy that will carry you through, the next couple hours. So I do suggest a handful of nuts for snack, a handful of pumpkin seeds, maybe some avocado and some guacamole with some vegetables. There's lots of different options of fat sources that you could choose. You could do a little bit of coconut oil and some coffee, but a lot of times it's just easy to grab a handful of nuts. So I want to talk a little bit about nut butter, nuts, and just kind of the do's and don'ts and the positive parts of them, but then also just the things that can cause some inflammation and some histamine responses as well. So right now I'm starting with peanut butter. I don't typically recommend peanut butter because I think that peanuts are metabolized like a bean to your body. So it's going to actually cause you to have a little bit higher blood sugar response if you're eating peanuts versus an almond or a walnut or a pecan or a cashew, that those being raw, of course. But so I typically don't recommend peanuts or peanut butter for that reason, because again, metabolized like a bean. So that's going to be a starchy combination. So when you have the peanuts, even though you're having fat, it's almost like you're having a starch. Your body uses it like a starch. And then the other reason why I don't typically suggest peanut butter is because peanuts are just a high in histamine building food. So it'd be kind of like having pork or shellfish or something like that. I try to keep a person's histamine levels down as low as possible. So I usually try to avoid peanuts, peanut oil, or anything with peanuts in it, so that those histamine levels can stay down. Now, there's some folks that do just fine having peanuts, and there's some folks that do just fine having peanut butter. But the majority of the people don't realize they're having a response to peanuts or peanut butter because they've never taken it out long enough to really see. So my suggestion is if you eat peanut butter every single day, I would recommend taking it out for about 3 weeks. And then I would recommend pulling in maybe almond butter or maybe cashew butter after the 3 weeks, and see if you notice a difference. And then maybe a month later, pull the peanut butter back in. And if you find that your fingers are swelling, you find that your face has some swelling, if you find that your arms has some swelling, or that your weight goes up by 1 to 2 pounds after eating it, or that your digestion changes in any way, then I would probably cut the peanuts out and I would stick with something more like almonds or something more like cashews. Now, peanut butter, I've got a couple of them here. One of the negatives for peanut butter, and same for almond butter and cashew butter, is what they combine with it. So a lot of times, like here's one that is a smoother one, so it's going to be more popular. This one has roasted peanuts, sugar, palm oil, and salt in it. So the fact that it doesn't have peanut oil and the fact that it doesn't have soybean oil in it is a positive, because typically if you went out to the grocery store to look at peanut butter, you would find that they would be filled with soybean oil and filled with corn oil or filled with peanut oil. So those are highly inflammatory oils, and that's a major cause of inflammation in the body. It's also a major cause of histamine responses in the body. Your body's not really built to accept soybean oil or corn oil, and it doesn't do well with peanut oil either. So when it's combined with a quality fat, you defeat the purpose of the quality fat by bringing in a negative fat. So if you're going to do peanut butter, I would do something that's just peanuts. Again, I've already recommended that I'm not a big fan of peanuts, but if you're going to do peanut butter, I would do something that's strictly peanuts. So yes, this might not have peanut oil in it outside of the peanuts, and it might not have soybean oil in it, but it does have sugar in it. So if you're going to consume peanut butter, then if you're consuming this one, you're going to be consuming sugar. And if you're feeding it to your kids, you're feeding them sugar. And you have to take that into consideration. A lot of people just, oh gosh, well, I'm going to look at the sugars here. Well, the sugars are only 3 grams, so that's not too bad. But you have to understand that those sugars are coming from sugar. So it's sugar, S-U-G-A-R. So you're feeding them sugar. So do you want them to start the day off eating sugar? Because they are, if they're eating something like this. And Peter Pan, Jif, those all have sugar in them. Even the powdered peanut butters all have sugar in them. So if you see sugar on the ingredient list, don't get it. Because you can get something without sugar and you can add your own stevia to it, and then you don't have to have a sugar response just from eating peanut butter. This is no longer a healthy food once it has sugar in it. It's no longer considered healthy. It's bad enough if we're talking about the fact that it has soybean oil in it, and then if we're talking about the fact that it has peanut oil in it, and so those poor oils are creating an inflammatory response. But then when you couple that with sugar as well, you're going to end up having more of a histamatic response because it has all those combined. So the comparison would be something that has just peanuts in it. So if you read the ingredient list, it just has peanuts. So that's what you're looking for, is something with just peanuts. This is the one, if someone's going to eat peanut butter, that I always suggest. It's Smucker's All Natural. And what you do when you get home is you just turn it upside down and put it in the refrigerator, and then it all comes together. Then you don't have all that oil separation that you have to deal with. But on the ingredient list, this is just peanuts. It says that it contains 1% or less of salt, but it's just peanuts. That's not what the other peanut butters have. Again, they have soybean oil, they have peanut oil, and they have sugar. Any amount of sugar is still sugar. It's not that there's fruit in there with it, so they're counting the fruit, the sugar from the fruit, and it's more natural. It's sugar. It's the sugar bowl, and they're putting sugar in it. Don't start your kids' day out with sugar. It's not going to help them. It's not going to help their gut. It's not going to help their allergies. It's not going to help you. You're going to have a blood sugar response from it. So again, my opinion would be skip peanuts, because they're going to be processed like a bean, and I think they're going to raise your blood sugar, and I think they're going to raise inflammation. But also skip peanuts, because I think that they'll cause more of a histamine response long term. So I would not suggest doing peanuts. I would suggest doing something with less of an allergic response, something more like an almond, something more like a cashew, maybe a pecan, or maybe a walnut or something like that. So when it comes to just nuts, I've got 2 different types of nuts here, and this would be something that you could get just from like Sam's or Costco, and this is a Planters brand. And if you look at the ingredient list, it's cashew, sea salt, peanut oil, and that's what we're trying to avoid. So these are not raw cashews. It's not that the salt is an issue. It's going to be that the peanut oil would be the issue. So if it's peanut oil or soybean oil, we don't want this anymore, because you took a good fat through the cashew and you dipped it into a bad fat. The peanut oil and the soybean oil are going to cause an allergic response in the body for your kids and for adults. But they're also going to raise your cholesterol. But the biggest thing is that they cause a histamatic response. So allergies continue, gut issues continue. This is an immune system issue. So no soybean oil and no peanut oil. Try to avoid it like the plague. Again, it's not about the salt. So if you buy some raw cashews and you take them home and you spray them with a little bit of, or roll them in a little bit of avocado oil, or roll them in a little bit of a real true olive oil, and then roll them in sea salt, it's fine, because the sea salt's going to have all the minerals, so they're not just consuming sodium. But then roast them in the oven. The reason why these are no longer good is because of that peanut oil or because of that soybean oil. Well, they had to put that on there to be able to keep the salt on there. So if you do it on your own and you do it with raw cashews, it's okay. And then another way you can do it is you could use some egg whites, put some cinnamon, put some stevia, blend it up real quick, and use some salt as well, and then roll that all over the nuts and then bake that. And then they'll end up being like cinnamon sugar, pecans, cinnamon sugar, cashews, however you want to make it, almonds. So look for raw cashews, raw almonds. When you're going for something like a pecan or something like a walnut, they're raw. I mean, there's really nothing on them. So if you go to the baking aisle, and you'll see it's just pecans. So, if you go to the baking aisle for nuts, they're always non-roasted because you're going to bake them. So they're expecting that, and they're typically never rolled in any type of salt. Again, it's not that salt is bad. It's just that table salt is strictly sodium. So you don't want to roll them in table salt. You want to roll them in something like Celtic sea salt or pink Himalayan sea salt. So if you're going to eat nuts as a snack, please try to buy raw nuts. Raw nuts make all the difference in the world because you're not consuming peanut oil and you're not consuming soybean oil, two highly inflammatory oils, which will cause a histamatic response, more allergy issues, more gut issues, more skin issues, more joint issues. Keep that out of your system. You don't want them. Now, a lot of them are marketed to have sea salt in them, which is great. But again, in order to get the sea salt on there, they're having to roll them in peanut oil or soybean oil. So avoiding that. So in summary, if you're going to do nuts as a snack, which is a great quality snack, it's a good fat source that should help to sustain you from one meal to the next meal. It's a good bridge. It's a good gap to build between two meals. Make sure that they're raw nuts. You can pick those up at Deerberg's in the organic aisle in those bulk bins. You can pick them up at Walgreens. They have raw nuts. You can pick them up at, even Sam's has raw nuts now. You just really have to look for it. And when you look for it, you look on the ingredients, and the ingredients would say cashews. These do not. These have multiple ingredients. If you're choosing to go ahead and have peanuts or peanut butter, just get the one that says peanuts, just peanuts. You don't want sugar added to it. You don't want to have soybean oil added to it. You don't want to have additional peanut oil added to it. Again, there's no reason to add sugar to the mix. This is peanuts with sugar, and typically soybean oil, if you're using a Jif or if you're using a Peter Pan, this is peanuts. So there's two completely different animals here. So you're going to have a sugar response and an allergic response, and you're just going to deal with having a response from peanuts. So some folks will do okay with peanuts, but in my years of doing what I do, I found that probably maybe 25% of the population metabolize peanuts on a positive level. Most people don't realize that they're having a response to it until they take it out. So my suggestion again would be take peanuts out and peanut butter for an entire month, but for 3 weeks, take all nuts out. Then incorporate raw almonds, raw cashews, raw pecans or walnuts, and see how you handle them. And then after about a month and a half, bring a tablespoon of natural peanut butter in. See if your fingers swell. See if your face swells. See if your weight goes up. See if your digestion changes. If any of those things happen, then you're having a response from peanuts and not even realizing it. They're a high histamine producing food, and your body will swell from it. Do not consume something with unnecessary inflammatory oils. Peanut oil and soybean oil, that's going to raise the cholesterol. It's going to raise an allergic response, raise histamine levels. This could be the cause of different types of joint issues. This could be the cause of different types of gut issues. This could be the cause of skin issues. This could be the cause of allergies on a regular basis. Sometimes it can take a couple weeks to get that stuff to work out of you. So don't just not have it for a couple days and say nothing's changed. Truly take it out for at least a month and see the difference. Don't just grab a handful of nuts that you got in a package at the gas station. Look at the ingredients. Even gas stations now sell raw nuts. You want them raw. If you want them roasted, roast them on your own. Roll them in some avocado oil, roll them in some whole olive oil, and then put your sea salt that's mineralized on it and bake them in the oven. If you want to make them savory, add some chili powder to it, add some rosemary to it, add some garlic to it. If you want to make them sweet, roll them in some egg white and put some cinnamon and stevia in there. There's lots of different options. But do understand that this is a healthy fat and it's a quality fat, but when it's combined with sugar and it's combined with high histamine, bad fats like peanut oil or soybean oil, it no longer is a healthy fat for you. So you have to understand you're not doing yourself any good by continuing to have that. And you're not doing your kids any good by having that. So if you're going to feed them peanut butter, feed them one without the sugar. They don't need the sugar. You can take this jar, put it in a different container, and you can add your own stevia to it to sweeten it up. You can add a little vanilla to it. You can add a little cinnamon to it. You could add some protein powder to it, some chocolate protein powder to it. They will eat this. It's just going to take a couple of days to adapt to it. Don't put sugar in your system when you don't have to. Again, don't look at just this right here telling you that it's only 3 grams of sugar. I understand that, but the grams of sugar are coming from sugar. So look at this, okay? This is what matters. What's in this? Is soybean oil in this? Is peanut oil in this? Is sugar in this? I don't want this. I want something that just reads to me peanuts, almonds, cashews. Pay attention to that. This is an inflammation builder, not just with the sugar, but due to the fact that it has those poor oils in there. This is what we do. We kind of help people navigate through these simple mistakes because there are folks that have been consuming these for years and not understanding why they still have high cholesterol. They're not understanding why they still have skin issues, not understanding why they still have allergy issues or why they deal with gut issues on a regular basis. Sometimes some of these basic things being eliminated from your diet can be life-changing. We have a 5-month nutrition program where we navigate you through all of this. If you take a look at integritytraininggroup.com, you can get more information on what we do. And there's also podcasts from our radio show that we do on FM News Talk 97.1 every Sunday at 2. Just take a look at it at integritytraininggroup.com. Thanks for listening and have a great day.